Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today I'm going to give you all my picks for week 2 of the 2021 Overwatch League season. This week we have 6 teams making their debut, as well as of course some returns of some teams who played last week. So let's jump in, let's talk about what we have going on for this week. I'll throw my picks up on the screen. When we get to the end, you'll see like my overall picks. You can kind of recap those. But let's start with Friday. We have 2 games on Friday, as always, both in the North American region. First one is the Paris Eternal making their debut against the Vancouver Titans. This match should be pretty close. These are the 2 teams that most people have ranked towards the bottom of the standings. I think that the Paris Eternal should be favored in this match. They haven't played yet, so they have a little bit more experience getting to kind of hide what they're doing a little bit better. They have the benefit of surprise, and they have that going for them. Vancouver did not look great last week. They had some moments where I thought they looked somewhat promising. This is kind of their first real chance to kind of come out and show up in a match and get a big win, potentially. But I wouldn't say that it's super likely. I think this match is, I won't say it's unlikely. This match, like I said, it's pretty close. These 2 teams are probably pretty close together. But ultimately, I give the edge to the Eternal. I think they have just more flashy players. I think that when you look at the likes of Naga and Khan, they've looked very, very good. Even Onigod has looked really good. I think that the DPS matchup definitely benefits the Eternal. And then you also have, I think, a significantly better support line just because of Khan for the Eternal. I think that you're going to see some potential problems there for the Titans because of where the Eternal's roster strengths are. And so for that reason, I'm going to go with the Eternal for this one. The second match of the day is the LA Gladiators playing 2 Fridays in a row. They take on the London Spitfire. They played somewhat recently in the Steel Series tournament that went on. So that match was pretty close when that one took place. So I'm curious to see what happens the second time around. So I expect this game to be pretty close. It's a 3-2 when they played in the Steel Series tournament. I expect this one to be another one that should be pretty close. Gladiators did not look great last week. They had some struggles. But I think going forward, I hope that they kind of right the ship. I think they need to focus a lot more on making sure Moth is in as much as possible. I think that them taking him out a lot was not very smart. And I also think that you need to be running Birdring Kevster as much as possible. Those are the 2 players who should be playing almost all the time. There are very few reasons why I think Mira should be getting full playtime when you can run Birdring Kevster. There's certain metas and certain compositions where definitely you should be playing Mira. But Mira should be playing a map or 2 maximum. And I think that it really depends on the meta. Mira's not a bad player, but he does not have the same peaks and heights that Birdring and Kevster can hit. So I need to see some more of that. The Spitfire, some really talented players on the roster, especially, and you look at Shax. I mean, Shax is really, really good, and I think Blase is a very good player as well. So I expect it to be kind of Shax Blase for a lot of the early part of this season until Sparker is eligible to play. That's where my mind goes immediately. I think this one will be somewhat interesting. I think it should be close, but I do think the Gladiators will win this one. I think they are just a better team. They have more talent on their roster. And I think that a lot of what happened last week is fixable, especially when you go up against 2 teams that are really good, one of which is arguably the most talented roster in the league, and one of which is running compositions you're not really prepared for. The fact that the Gladiators went 0-2 last week doesn't concern me. What happens this week is really kind of what determines how good they're going to be, so I think the Gladiators should take this one, so I'm going that direction. Moving into the APAC matches, we have the Chengdu Hunters taking on the New York Excelsior, first match of the day on Saturday. I am picking the Chengdu Hunters for this one. I think New York is a pretty good team, obviously. I think that they look to have a pretty promising roster, but their first match of the season could not come against much of a more difficult opponent. They do have the benefit of being able to look at the film of the Hunters and look at their VODs from their matches against Shanghai and from their matches against the LA Valiant. See what kind of things worked and didn't work against Chengdu, and you can kind of work from there to try to counteract what they're doing. But it feels very unlikely to me that New York is going to be able to beat Chengdu. Just the way they looked was really, really, really solid. Chengdu's a weird team. Obviously, they have ups that are really high and they have lows that are really low. They can beat anybody. They can also lose to anybody. So I think this one could be pretty close, but I think New York is not going to be able to pull this one out. So I'm going to go with the Hunters for this one. Philadelphia Fusion take on the Hangzhou Spark as the second and final APAC match for Saturday. I really like the Fusion. Last week they impressed me a lot. I didn't think they would look that good. I thought Carpe and Rascal looked really good together. I thought that Mono and Hoppa played better than I ever saw them play on New York. And I thought Toby was pretty good. I think that most of the players they brought in are not going to be their permanent solutions, but for the time being, I think this team is really, really good. And I think that is something that will really, really help the Fusion. The Spark, I still have a ton of questions about them. I couldn't tell you who a single one of their starters is going to be for this first match. I believe Takoyaki is 18 now, so he could play. So there really is no way really to tell what's going on here. So I think it's really tough to pick the Hangzhou Spark in any match when we haven't actually seen them play yet. It's just not feasible, in my opinion, to look at this team and say, oh, I know they're going to win, when you can't even name who they're going to play. Like, tell me who you know with 100% certainty is going to play. Because I mean, I'd say probably Architect. He's probably the player I'm the most confident in starting, because they have to have one Korean DPS in at least. So if they're going to have one, it'll probably be Architect. But beyond that, I don't know. Takoyaki's pretty good from everything I've heard. I mean, Gushue's really good as well, but I mean, I don't know. So it's really tough for me to pick the Spark when I don't know what they have going on. So I'm picking the Fusion for this one. I think the Fusion look really good, and I think they should be able to take the win here. If they can beat Seoul and they can beat Guangzhou, I think they can beat Hangzhou. Moving into North America, the Houston Outlaws, after their great start to the season, get a little bit easier of an opponent with the Paris Eternal. I think the Outlaws should win this one. I think the Eternal will come off a win against the Titans, but I think the Outlaws are just too strong, which I never thought I'd have that phrase come out of my mouth. But the Outlaws looked really good the first weekend, beating Dallas and the Shock, two very good teams. Outlaws are arguably the best team in North America right now. They look incredible. This is going to be kind of that moment for them to prove themselves, hey, we're good consistently. We're not going to take any matches lightly. We can beat the best, and we can also continue to beat the teams below them. If they can have a good weekend, they can lock in a 4-0 week, or a 4-0 Melee qualifiers record, which would help them a ton. Would not be surprised if we see this team in Hawaii. So Houston Outlaws very, very good, and I think they proved themselves very, very much last week. So I have full faith in them to beat the Paris Eternal. Next match in North America on Saturday, we have the LA Gladiators taking on the Boston Uprising. Another matchup that we saw take place in the Steel Series Invitational. Gladiators beat the Uprising 3-0 when they played last. I think that the Uprising right now are in a bit of a transitional period. I don't feel very confident in them at this very moment. They signed Gable Shi recently. I don't expect him to be with the team yet. So I don't expect him to be playing. I expect Punk to play this first weekend of matches, possibly even the entire month of May and the tournament. It's obviously possible that he'll be with the team sooner rather than later, but right now I would expect Punk to be the player they have playing. Gladiators, I think, should be able to win this one. I think Uprising have some problems with they don't have Soon. They can put in Color Hex if they need to, but seemingly they want to go the direction of Toronto, where they basically keep the same 6 players in at all times, all their Korean players, and then they kind of, out of necessity, would bring in other players. So right now, I would say that the Gladiators have the edge. They have some more time under their belt. They have their roster at full strength, mostly, other than the fact that Kevster's playing on really high ping. So I think the Gladiators, despite their historic poor results against the Uprising, I think they should take this one. My big pick game, the first of 2, on Saturday I have the Washington Justice against the Dallas Fuel as a big pick match. I have my eyes on this one. This match should be very good. Decay going up against his old team. Obviously the only player on that Fuel team that was on the Fuel when Decay was there is Doha. But you also have Closer joining the Justice, also against his old team. So there's some rivalries there that'll be interesting to watch. This is the first match of the season for the Washington Justice, so we have not seen them play yet, so I'm very interested to see what they do. I think that the Dallas Fuel are going to have a bit of a problem dealing with this Justice roster. We saw some pretty solid Tracer play out of Sparkle. Wasn't the best Tracer we've ever seen, but it was good, which is better than I think what a lot of other people expected. I think most people kind of expected the Tracer to be basically unplayable for the Dallas Fuel, but it is an option. But we have not really gotten to see Sparkle go up against arguably, some of the best Tracers in the world. Dante is up there; he's a very good Tracer, but it was kind of the happy show, and I don't think there were a ton of Tracer duels. But now you're going up against Decay, who's got an incredible Tracer, an incredible Widowmaker, an incredible McCree. I mean, Decay is going to be a player who really pushes this team. And when we saw this Paris Eternal team that then became largely the Dallas Fuel last season up against the Justice in the playoffs, it wasn't pretty. Now, I don't expect it to be like that anymore. The meta is very different now, and so I don't know how it'll fare in terms of the what we can glean from that. The teams are also very different as well, but I think the Justice have the edge at every position except for probably support. I think the Justice tank line looks really, really good as I think Fearless Hanbin are, and they are a tank line you look at to be one of the best. Fury to me is next level. I think Fury has the edge over Hanbin on every hero, and then I just think Mag. No main tank has been this hyped coming into the Overwatch League since 2018. Mag is that good. He is the Rookie of the Year frontrunner before the season has even started. We're talking about incredibly talented players coming in here to this Justice team. You pair them with Decay, this Justice team is going to be really good. I think this will be a competitive series. I think it'll be close. A lot of people don't have as much faith in, I think, the coaching staff of the Justice as I do, which I think is understandable. But I really like what this Justice roster has done. I like what they have thrown together, and I think that they should be favored here against the Fuel. I think it'll be close. It's probably my big pick game, but I am taking the Justice for this one. Moving on to Sunday, we have 2 APAC matches once again, starting with the Hangzhou Spark taking on the New York Excelsior. Now, maybe this is me drinking the Kool-Aid, I'm being a homer, but I'm picking the NYXL to win this one. My problems with the Spark may change after they play the Fusion. Maybe the Spark look really, really good. Maybe they have a set 6 that they seem to want to run, and maybe they look really solid. I don't know. To me, right now, it is too hard to predict the Hangzhou Spark when you don't know what they're going to do. I don't know who they're going to play at all. I don't have any confidence in what they're going to bring, who they're going to pair with who. It's too difficult to pick that. At least with New York, I know I'm going to see Yakpong and Bianca in the front line. I know I'm going to see Friday and Jonak in the back line. And I'm probably going to see Ivy and Guangbung in the front line, or Ivy and Flora, right? Or, maybe Feather comes in depending on what the composition needs to be. But, the only question you have with New York is the DPS, and you don't really feel like that's that big of a deal. Hangzhou is everywhere. I don't know what they're going to run, so New York, to me, has the edge for this one. Scrimbucks have been very favorable for New York. A lot of people are very high on this New York team. It'll be an interesting matchup. I think it'll be pretty close, but ultimately I think New York should take this one. Just because I think that they have more solid support between them, and they have that synergy down based on what we've heard. So that's where I'm going for that one. My second big pick game of the week. Never thought that this would be a big pick game. The Chengdu Hunters taking on the Philadelphia Fusion. What a start for these two teams. Both of them are tied for the best record in the Overwatch League at 2-0, +5 differential. Big week for the Philadelphia Fusion, of course, getting that victory over Seoul and also the LA Valiant. Even bigger week for the Chengdu Hunters, though, getting a win over the Shanghai Dragons and also the LA Valiant. So, two teams that I think are well suited. The Fusion, I think, should only look better this week than they did last week. New players added to this team, seemingly meshing very well with the rest of the roster. I think the coaching from 9K looks to be one of the biggest benefits of this team. I know, I believe it was Nico, the former Paris Eternal DPS player, was on stream recently, and he had talked about this team, and he said that he thought that 9K was a really good coach, and he actually thought that with a really good coach, Carpe could become the best player in the league. And I thought Carpe looked incredible last weekend. I think he and Rascal pair up really well. So I think this is a tough match for the Hunters. I think the Hunters obviously have a ton of really solid play that they bring. And the fact that they were able to completely outmatch the Shanghai Dragons makes this match very, very, very much up for grabs for either of these teams. But I'm buying into the Fusion stonks, man. They looked great. They looked better than I expected them to. And I think that when you have a team that exceeds your expectations that much, that quickly, you are looking at a pretty dominant team, a pretty strong team. So I'm buying into the Fusion. I think they win this one. It'll be close, but I think they take it in the end. Moving into the North American matches for Sunday, Houston Outlaws, London Spitfire. This one I think will be an okay series, but I can't pick against the Outlaws right now after the weekend they had. They're too strong. They're too good. Spitfire have some talent, but I don't think they're going to be able to match up as well against Houston Outlaws as they would the Gladiators earlier in the week. And if they can't beat them, they're not beating the Outlaws, in my opinion. So I do think the Outlaws are going to go 4-0 for the May Melee qualifiers. I think they're in the driver's seat right now. They look very good. Next NA match, Dallas Fuel take on the Boston Uprising. I like the Fuel in this one. Uprising, like I said, with their match against the Gladiators, they got too many things I'm questioning about. Punk is probably playing, so if Punk's playing, that means you don't have Gable Sheehan yet, because he probably won't be with the team yet. You're still going to have those DPS issues where you only have Color Hex as your substitute. He's the only person you can put in that isn't a Korean DPS player. Obviously, you have Fusion still on this roster, but they seemingly want to go a more Korean route, so they probably will stick primarily to their Korean DPS players. They probably are going to look to add another one, but only time will tell at this point in time. Dallas Fuel, I think, have shown that they are still a good team. The fact that they were able to beat the Gladiators last week. They're 1-1. They have a positive differential. They had a close series against one of the best teams in North America right now, so I don't think that this should be too much of a challenge for the Fuel. I think they will win this one pretty handily. And the final match of the weekend is the Vancouver Titans taking on the Washington Justice. And boy, do I think this one will be a very one-sided affair in favor of the Washington Justice. I'm not crazy about the Titans. I don't think they look very good. I think they will improve over time, but right now I don't have any faith in them. A little factoid for everybody. The Vancouver Titans have beaten every team in the Overwatch League except for the Washington Justice. Even the 2019 Vancouver Titans lost to the Washington Justice. So when you have a historic thing like that, which doesn't really mean a lot considering how different these rosters are from their history, but I just don't see it happening. I don't think the Titans have the strength. They don't have the star power that the Justice have. Star power doesn't necessarily win you games because some of the biggest stars don't always find the most success, but against lower teams like this, the talent gap is just too big, I think, and so to me, this is an easy win for the Washington Justice. So there's my picks. Throw them up on the screen real quick for you all. 9-5 last week, so not a great week, but it's the first week. First week is always a little bit tough. But hopefully my big picks go well this week. We can keep that perfect big pick streak alive. But that is everything from me today. Let me know your thoughts on my predictions in the comments down below. Who do you think is going to win these matches this weekend? What match are you most excited for? I think Justice Fuel is probably going to be the best match of the weekend because I think that those two teams match up pretty similarly. I think that'll be a good one, two really good teams. So I'm excited for that one. But I'd love to hear from you which matches you're the most excited for. But that is all for me for today. So thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video and want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. But for now, I'm going to get out of here. So hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time. Bye-bye.